So today I would like to talk about palette knives. Palette knives are mostly used to mix colors, but we can also paint with it, remove paint, clean the palette. It's a very useful tool with oil paint. Of course, you can also mix your colors with a brush. There is no rule for that. You can use either your palette knife, either your brush. I personally use both. I just found that with my palette knife, I'm able to see more precisely the amount of colors, the amount of color that I'm gonna introduce in my pile while mixing. I really found that my palette knife is more precise for that. I don't know if with the brush it will come with experience, but I feel with the brush sometimes when you dip in the color, you don't know exactly how much paint goes in the bristle. I do, like I said, I do both. Often I start by mixing a few piles, a main pile with my palette knife, and then I keep mixing my colors with a brush. It really depends, because when I go paint outside en plein air, I mostly use only my brush to mix colors, and in the studio, it's true, I often use my palette knife. But once I'm in the flow of painting, I often only use my brush to mix colors. I will say anyway that a palette knife is a must-have when you use oil paint. So now, about which palette knife to buy when starting oil painting. I will say that at some point, I always recommend to buy the art supply in an art supply stores. Over there, you find they have a minimum requirement, a quality minimum that they require to sell the product to their customers. So I will say, if you buy your palette knife in an art supply store, you cannot go wrong. Then if the palette knife will suit you, well, this is a little bit of trial and error. But one day, at the beginning, my palette knife that I bought in an art supply store broke, and I needed a fast replacement. So I ordered 2 sets of palette knife in one of these big online website where you can buy anything. So I ordered 2 sets of this cheap palette knife. I will say that these ones, I will really not recommend them. I know sometimes it's tempting. They come in a set of 5, 6, and it's very cheap. But while the quality is also very cheap. So the only good thing that I found about this palette knife is that the blade, the whole thing is made of one element, so that's a good thing, but the rest is very, there's not much else to say about them. Look, they, if I can, you see they really break easily. This one already broke, obviously, but they are very cheaply made. The blade doesn't bend correctly. They are the main thing is that your palette knife needs to be, in my opinion, enjoyable, because you mix a lot of colors when you do oil paint. And I really want a palette knife that I'm comfortable working with, and this one's the cheap palette knife. They definitely didn't answer that requirement. This is my go-to palette knife, and look, there's one thing also I want to show you, is that this thing is very important that I'm showing you right now, in my opinion. The blade basically of my palette knife goes deeper down. I hope by aligning like that you can see what I'm saying, is that the blade of my palette knife goes deeper down here. And this seems a small detail, but it's very important, because that way your hand doesn't touch your palette at any moment or anything like that. And it's just that a real palette knife made by professional, it's always better. These ones are very, very cheap. They are not well done. They break easily, and like you see here, it's even worse. The blade doesn't go deep at all, and this one is even harder than the other one. So maybe in some occasion a hard blade can be useful. I don't say the opposite, but this whole palette knife set are very not enjoyable to work with. So I will avoid to buy these cheap palette knives online, because for the price of one set you can have one palette knife, one in the cheaper range in an art supply store. This one, I think it's $5 or $6. These ones are made from by Blick, I believe, but all the art supply store, if you look at their website or you go there, they all have a range that they basically put their brand on, and they all look the same. I don't know if they can come from the same manufacturer and they just changed the label on the wood, but they are very good. They are $5 or $6, and honestly, to start, this is a great palette knife to start with. 3 years later, I'm still using this one. I had to change it and I will show you why. But I think, in my opinion, to start oil painting, these ones are great. So these palette knives that are in the cheaper, in the cheap range of the art supply store, in my opinion, they are great to start with. I'm still using them today. Small palette knives like that, I don't use them to clean my, to mix my colors. I use them to organize my palette, to organize the colors that I just mixed, to move them around on my palette. I use them sometimes to do some marks on my paintings, and that's it. More or less, that's it. But I felt these small palette knives are not convenient to mix colors, because when you mix colors with a small palette knife like that, your color will come here on the blade and it will start to go up here. So this is very much not something I like. So to mix my colors, I always use this one. This one is a number 71. Here it's between 71 millimeters and 80 millimeters. I think it's 71, but between 71 and 80 millimeters, I found that is the best length of palette knife to mix my colors with. It's great. So this one, I will say there is one downside. Like you can see here on this one, I already bought, I think it's my third, I'm not sure. This one is a 50, this one is a 2, no, this one is another one. So I bought 2 of these, and you see here the blade broke, because at the beginning I was mixing with that, and this is not good because the blade, yeah, it didn't resist. When I pressed too much on the blade, it didn't resist. And another time, this one is a longer one, but not as long as the other one. This one here broke, so that's what I wanted to show you. In my opinion, one of the only downside of this palette knife that are on the cheaper range is that the blade is not one element, but the blade is 2 elements welded together. So here it's welded. So this is the weak point of the palette knife. I feel when you use a lot the small ones, they have a tendency to break faster, and I feel this one, the 71 millimeters to 80 millimeters, it bends correctly on the blade and not really here where it's welded, so it's less likely to break. I expect this one to break at some point, but it's been, I think, 2 years that I'm using this one and it didn't break yet. It still hold on tight to it, so it's pretty good. As you can see, the blade is very soft. It's to me it's great to mix with. I'm still on the look for another palette knife that might be slightly better than that. But this one, again, to start with, they are great. Now, if you wonder what is the best brush when you start oil painting, I have a video for that. If you wonder what is the best surface to start to paint on when starting oil painting, I also have a video for that. So actually, I have a whole playlist dedicated to starting oil painting that I keep updating as soon as I can. So please check this playlist if you just start oil painting. And I hope this video was useful.